Hello, everyone, and good evening. My name is Maria Mifton, and I'm a 1L here at Colorado Law. And I'm also a proud member of Silicon Flatirons Student Group. And it's my pleasure to introduce our next panel tonight. So joining us tonight is Russell Cropanzano. He's the Ted Anderson Professor of Free Enterprise at the CU Boulder Leeds School of Business. And then we have Erin Gilmore. She's Head of Global Inside Sales at Legora. And then we have Lucy Stark. She's a Managing Partner at Holland and Hart. And Morgan Tregenza, who's the founder and CEO of Levelheaded. And our moderator for tonight is the lovely Melanie Kay, who's an Associate Teaching Professor here at Colorado Law. So please join me in welcoming our panelists.
Thanks very much, and thanks to all of our panelists for being here tonight. Morgan and Erin, I'd like to start with you. If you could give us kind of a lay of the land of AI legal tools being deployed in the industry and share with us a bit more about Levelheaded and Legora and just kind of set us off for the way that you're working in this space.
Sure, I'll kick it off. Can everyone hear me? Thank you for having me. I'm Erin Gilmore. I'm coming from Legora, which is a collaborative AI platform for lawyers. It is designed to empower lawyers to do their best work. We're working with some of the top law firms in the US, Goodwin, Cleary, Debevoise, maybe Holland and Hart one day. And our platform really has three functionalities. The first one is a chat style interface similar to what you probably are familiar with ChatGPT, except it is secure, built for legal. Our second feature is tabular review, which you can imagine is Excel on steroids. So if you were to upload hundreds of thousands of documents and each column is an AI prompt, you can do data extraction very quickly. And then our third feature is a Word add-in. Lawyers spend a lot of their time in Word. So imagine if you could redline, edit, draft, summarize, compare, do request lists, really think of all the possibilities. Legora allows you to do that. So we're really built to help lawyers spend less time on repetitive tasks and much more time on high value work.
Hi, everyone. So happy to be here. Levelheaded is on a mission to democratize access to dispute resolution and particularly mediation in the legal system. So we are deploying AI to really help human mediators and connect with more mediation opportunities. Right now we're deploying it in a few different ways, but namely we're helping mediators to draft stipulations that are accurate, more professional, more consistent, and to help guide them in doing better on that. So saying, hey, this is a pass, this is a fail, you need this, you need that. And we're also actually right now developing it to help create better intake. So our mediators are spending less time on that building rapport aspect. Yeah.
Lucy, I'd love to hear if those tools are similar to ones that you're seeing deployed at Holland and Hart, or if you're using other types of tools and what that's looking like for you.
Sure. And I should probably tell you who Holland and Hart is to kind of put my answer in perspective. Those of you who know the legal industry well, which is probably everybody in this room, knows there's like the AmLaw 200, right? That's the 200 biggest law firms in the country. Holland and Hart is 112. So there's thousands of law firms in the country. The 200 biggest, we're like right smack in the middle. So we are definitely not the really big ones who can afford anything they want. But we are kind of solidly in the middle of the AmLaw 200. So it's an interesting place to be because we compete with all of them. We were lucky enough years ago to have a partner who decided that we needed to have an innovation lab here in Boulder. And we hired data scientists and programmers, and we started creating all of this work, mostly at the time around our patent prosecution teams, but really designed to speed things up that were repetitive tasks. That set us up really well for the kind of current moment, or the moment several years ago when AI and large language models were kind of ready for prime time. We adopted, I never heard that phrase, the garden, what was it? The garden walled. We have our own version of ChatGPT in-house. We have Claude that is our primary use. And then, there's a million different things that that we all use every day that actually have AI in them that people don't actually know or don't think about as AI. Lexis has an AI tool, Westlaw has an AI tool, right? We have all of those things, and we're kind of looking at all of the others, what I would call wedge applications that are, the construction lawyers want this thing that's specific to construction law, and the litigators want this other thing. So we're kind of looking at all of them. We've adopted a good number, but I don't know, we're there.
I'm curious, I was intrigued by Dave's description of this as kind of a gold rush, and that, are you seeing that? Do you think it is more measured than maybe the gold rush image would make us concerned about? And Russell, I'm curious what you think on that as well in the larger space of AI being used in different occupations, not just the legal context.
I'll go first and quickly. It is every single day that I have a lawyer who's like, oh my God, that, oh my God, Lucy, we're so behind. We have to race to this. And I keep comparing them to the dog in the Disney film who says squirrel, right? Like that's that all day long, every day, where people are like, oh my God, if we don't get this thing, we will be behind. So in some ways, I really feel like it is. And my job as managing partner is very much to say, hold on, we're not doing that. We have to be strategic. We have to be thoughtful. We have to really think hard about what we're going to adopt and implement, because if we don't, we will end up with so much technical debt. Because even just buying the software, you then have to train all the people to use the software and all, right? Like it just takes an army. So it's really important. I think most law firms are being thoughtful about it to the extent that they aren't in that top 20 who can just afford to throw money at any problem they want.
Okay, so when we talk about goal rush, there's actually two parts to that, or two ways to interpret it. One is just in terms of market value. Most of them, don't take stock advice from me, but most observers suspect we might be in a bubble right now in terms of AI. There's been a lot of money thrown at it, so I'd be a little cautious. But in terms of organizations, one of the things that holds up the implementation of new technology is the technology has to be embedded in a supportive social system. And we don't know how to design those systems around AI yet. So I suspect the technology is going to be transformational. I don't think anyone denies that. I mean, that's going on now, but we won't get the full impact of it in terms of productivity gains and in terms of a realization of the social systems for a few more years yet. I personally envision a new job category being created. This is my name for it, AI articulator, somebody who can come in, or a group of people can come in and work on the interface between the artificial intelligence and the work teams. And I think that's going to be a pretty hot area to work in. And so I think it's a goal rush, but if you look at what actually happened in the goal rush, like the one in California in 1849, I always want to say 1848 because that's when we had all the revolutions in Europe, but that was something different. But actually, the people who made the real money were the people like Levi Strauss, who started selling blue jeans or supplies. It wasn't the guys digging the gold, and I wouldn't be surprised to see something like that here.
Just a note on that, not to totally put in a plug for Legora, but we're actually hiring lawyers as legal engineers. So we actually have them working really closely with our customers to sit with them and understand what do they do all day, what can we put AI towards, and like let's build use cases and workflows and playbooks from a legal AI standpoint that really makes sense to practitioners so that you can buy a tool, but if you don't know how to use it and apply it, then it's kind of useless. So it's an interesting.
We didn't coordinate in advance or anything.
That was actually one of my questions, was whether there was an iterative process with the people using your tools, and if you're building in recommendations or sort of customizable elements to work well based on individual needs. And a related question, how are you measuring the gains that you're seeing, whether it's efficiency or accuracy, or how are you testing those and kind of being able to demonstrate the benefits of some of these tools?
Yeah, we are definitely iterating. In fact, sometimes it's case by case, just because we can. We're a startup, right? We're like, oh God, that didn't seem to work.
Fail fast.
Yeah. And I think that that's hugely important. Like one of our first deployments of an intake was without human in the loop, and we quickly realized that what we needed was that warm body, right? Like you need somebody to talk to. But in figuring that out, you realize that after you have that trust and rapport built, you can do a lot to augment the people after that, and that's incredibly valuable. But how you do it is important. And I think having a human in the loop always is extremely important. And the second part, you said iterate, and are you seeing augmentation? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think prior to my company, just take a normal mediation that may take me a day. Prior to that day, I was spending anywhere from like 3 to 8 hours putting the case detail together, contacting the parties, scheduling, paying. Now with AI and technology able to automate a lot of that, I'm seeing a massive decrease in my mediation time. And then when you add that to my actual mediation and say stipulation drafting, I could go and draft a stipulation, maybe in a half an hour if it was an easy case, a hard case, maybe a day or two, and now I can do it in minutes.
I think on that note, if you imagine an M&A lawyer who's doing due diligence across hundreds of thousands of documents, and what used to take them days or weeks or months can now be done in a matter of minutes. Like the time saved is really where the value comes in. And I think we're trying to figure out how we quantify the efficiencies gained. We estimate that lawyers save on average 4 hours a week on non-billable work. So if we think about, okay, can we shift that non-billable work to billable work, it actually saves a 100-person law firm close to $6 million in potential billings. So we are trying to attach the time saved to actual revenue.
Lucy, are you seeing that in action?
Not yet. I mean,
You haven't seen Legora yet. I'm gonna pitch you after this.
I think just only because it's hard, right? It is hard. I've said over and over again, all of this is coming and it is going to have a huge impact on us, and we have to be really careful about how it happens. And also from my perspective, I think the biggest impact on a law firm in the next year or two is really going to be on our business professionals, the people who run the firm, and their ability to be more efficient and better at their jobs. And also the things that will help lawyers really kind of focus on the lawyering that they can do and take away some of that non-billable time. It's really hard right now for us to figure out the ROI, right? Like exactly how many hours are being saved. We don't have a good way to measure it yet.
Russell, what jobs and occupations do you see being most impacted the quickest? And can you give us maybe some examples of what it might look like?
So in terms, the way I would answer that is to think of what AI does well and what it doesn't do well. And so the things it does really well is it can take a big pile of data, whether that's text or whether it's numbers, and go through that data really quickly and then find important trends. It can also do speech or writing. That it's not really talking and writing, it's using statistics to predict what word should go next, but it can do things that are serviceable, at least as a first pass. So any job that has that is likely to be affected pretty quickly. So genetic medicine would be one. Genomic medicine would be one that's likely to be impacted, or data sciences, things of that sort. Now, the jobs that are going to be slower to be impacted, and actually think this might be where the law is going to be around for a long time. I really like the initial talks, are things that take something like judgment, empathy, or emotion, physical dexterity, things like first responders, or especially in a chaotic environment, even things like plumbing, that you have a problem, or things that take creative intuition. Those are much harder to program. You can get at them with machine learning, but it's going to be hard to replace people at that level. So I think those kinds of jobs are going to be preserved for the foreseeable future. should I keep going? Sure. I'm sorry. I get excited about this, so it's okay to tell me to shut up. Where I see the big changes coming is not this job's gonna go away so much, but the structure of those jobs are gonna change. And so, when I think of a job, I divide it into three sort of triage it: me task, delegated task, and automated task. And so a me task is something I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna do my own writing. In a delegated task is something I might give the computer to do, but I'm gonna review it. I think that's what's happening in legal practice, right? A lot of things, the AI can do the first pass, but you've got to look at it, make sure it's okay. And then automated are just things you just don't need to worry about anymore. And they're more or less outside of human control. And so you see some of that, like drones or something like that. I'm guessing for professional jobs, that third category is going to be smaller than it will be for other jobs that are more physical and more algorithmic.
I'm thinking back to Harry and Dave mentioning some of the horror stories we've seen of lawyers getting caught for not double checking hallucinated case citations. And we've all probably had instances where AI has failed us spectacularly. And so I'm wondering how you either build in safeguards for some of those things, how you're checking for those things, and creating a product or using a product in a way that you can trust and that you feel you're being transparent about the limitations and providing, kind of back-end checks for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think without a doubt, our philosophy as humans are in the loop. Actually spent the last 6 months working with my team to develop an AI ethics philosophy that we lived by. And that was in part like transparency, the ability to keep iterating, be flexible. But I think having humans in the loop all the time is hugely important, especially to check and make sure that AI automations or any technology, right, that you're deploying is effectively working. And getting feedback both from people who are using it and your practitioners. And then I think drilling down on what you're there to do, right? So my mission is to democratize access to mediation. There are lots of things that I can use AI to help deploy that, right? Better efficiencies means we can do more mediations, means we can reach more people, means we can make it more affordable. But we can't just do that willy-nilly. We have to do it with the utmost in consideration. And I absolutely believe that humans have to be a part of that. And then we use AI to augment us and deploy that at scale.
Yeah, Legora is also grounded in transparency as well as verification. So we have a couple features within our platform that kind of highlight where human eyes are needed. So we cite everything that is being pulled from AI. And if you click on that citation, it tells you the reasoning around how AI got to that conclusion. We have warning signs. So if our AI feels like it is not sure, which most open models, like they're incentivized to give you an answer because that's what humans want. Like we will flag if we don't have enough information to feel confident in the answer, so we'll flag that. And then within our Word plugin, we have track changes. So again, anything that is edited by AI also probably needs to be reviewed by a human. So there's always going to be a human component to it that makes sure that the AI output is also human output as well.
So for us, we have a constantly changing AI training that before you use any AI at our firm, you have to take the training and then there are kind of yearly updates that you have to do. We have an AI policy that I'm sure any firm that has rolled out AI has. You can only use the ones that are approved, those kinds of things. But importantly, it says, you should be proud of the fact that you are willing to try this technology. We should be a technology forward firm. You should tell your colleagues that you have used AI anytime that you do, because it is really important that your colleagues have that little bit red flag, right? To say, just double check me on this. I think that's really important. And it just struck me that I'm sitting at CU Law where I went to law school and I was on the law review and I published an article in the law review in 1997, I think, that was lawyers should never use email because this scary thing is going to make you lose attorney-client privilege. So I say all that to say, I'm not sure you should listen to anything that I say.
I think I've quoted your paper.
Well, lots of people have, but it says but see.
I think that transparency is really important, and I'm laughing because I was curious and just kind of playing around with the free version of ChatGPT, just almost testing it to see if it would hallucinate things, and it was hallucinating left and right. And then I would look up the site and find out that it was a bogus site, and I would tell it like, "Oh, did you hallucinate this?" And it would immediately fess up, and then it was like, "Step 2, apology." And like, I was like, I checked it, and I was like, "I'm sorry, I did it again." And I was like, "What is this?" But at least it was honest about it. So I'm thinking about labor and what this is going to do to legal labor. A recent survey of 800 lawyers at firms and in-house found that use of AI tools was actually really helpful in reducing stress and burnout because it was enabling lawyers to offload some of those kind of more grunt work, mundane, kind of time-intensive tasks. Do you see that either people who use your tools or lawyers at your firm who are starting to learn how to use these tools, are they reporting back that they feel that way? Is it freeing them up for more substantive, analytical, exciting work? What is that feeling like for people?
Yeah, I don't know that I have significantly statistic data, but in myself and my mediators, I think absolutely. It's exciting, and also it can be extremely stressful, right? When it is hallucinating, and even we're humans in the loop, you're like, oh my gosh. I think I will say that we work with courtrooms who've just used mediation prior. And now working with courtrooms who are using us, they're seeing less defaults. They're seeing that cases are being settled. If you have a caseload of 1,000 cases and even 300 are being settled, that lightens your docket. But I think unequivocally, it's helping people to offload that rote, really mundane tasks. Again, you have to understand like what those are and how they are effective in them. And I think it will take time. I think one of the hardest things to change with humans is habit changing, and using it even for myself and, the CEO and founder of an AI company. I wasn't easy to adopt AI. I wasn't easy to adopt Zoom at one point when my mediations went to Zoom. I was like, no way, I will not do that. So it takes time, and it takes consideration, and it takes, for lack of a better term, iterating and playing with it and failing. But it also takes dedication and devotion to saying, hey, we're going to do this and we're going to do it right, and not rushing to it and having deep consideration for how we deploy it.
I think I saw a stat recently that said 64% of legal work is admin. And I think that's a significant amount of the legal space that is spent on tasks that maybe aren't that exciting. And so I think if we can shift that number to be less and have lawyers spend more time on the strategy and the complexity and the human aspects of it, the ethics of it, should I say ethics a couple of times just to hone in on the credits here? I think that that's really exciting for lawyers. And I think that's why we've seen this like huge adoption and lawyers embracing this, because they got into law to help clients and to do really good work. And I think being able to address some of the repetitive grunt work with AI is a good thing.
So I actually just did a survey of the 1,100 people who work at my firm. So about 500-ish timekeepers and 500 business professionals at our firm. And we had 650 people respond, which is kind of amazing for a survey. It was mixed, right? There were definitely about 30% who said, this is amazing, I feel so much better. And there was at least 15 to 18% who said, oh my God, I'm terrified. Mm-hmm. And I think that for me, thinking about running the firm, it is really important that I spend time focused on those people, because that number is actually bigger than the people who admitted it, right? Like the people who are scared are more than that 15 to 18%, and really focusing on how do we help people understand they're not going to be replaced. I've had that asked at like various town halls. Are you still going to need paralegals? And the answer, yes. But I think it's a mix.
Russell, you had a really helpful example that we were chatting about that I think helpfully illustrated the ways that workplace ecosystems can shift and evolve as opposed to just terminating. Could you share the example you gave of the travel agents and what that role used to look like, and then with technology shifts, what it changed to look like?
Okay, great. No, so this, thank you. That's actually something I think is going to be a model for AI, though I don't know where the AI shift is going to actually end up, but I think it'll be something like this. So if you look at travel agents back in the 1990s, when we used to use them, and before that, you typically go in and they would book your flight for you. They'd have a computer screen and maybe like a headset, and they would set up your trip and book it. Very routine stuff. Nowadays, nobody uses a travel agent for that. And so sort of the bread and butter of the job went away. And the number of travel agents in the country peaked around the year 2000. I think it was 1999. And then it dropped by about 30%. But now it's actually growing again. Now, those numbers haven't completely recovered, although they might. But it's actually suddenly a viable career thing. The thing about it, though, is a travel agent's a completely different job now. What they're doing is they're setting up group trips. They're helping you plan your vacation. It's more like a travel consultant now. So the job is actually more interesting now. You're telling me that companies even fly you to stay in these hotels, and you could recommend them to your clients and stuff. So the job itself is, I don't want to say completely different, but largely different. And the numbers of people are actually recovering. It's also going to be a job that's hard to replace because it's based on dialogue with the client with whom you set up a relationship. And I think a lot more jobs will be looking like that in the future.
Yeah, I just go back to what Harry and David were talking about, but it's specifically the story about radiology. I think that's so compelling, right? Like, yes, a lot of this can help science, but maybe that proliferation of information and access really bolsters what we consider in those areas that need improvement. And particularly in law, I was at a legal conference where a study said that the average American thinks of suing 3 to 4 times a year. And if that were the case, we would all be really wealthy. But if that allows people to engage with a meaningful dispute resolution, and I would argue that that might be mediation, but it could be, filing a claim, then that might really change our industry, and we might see much more, disputes being filed. But I also really hope that it allows lawyers who, are wanting to help people do that. Like in my profession, what I really love is I actually get to do what I love, and that's mediate more and spend less time scheduling, doing payments, doing intakes.
Could you just add something real quickly? And I'm sort of correcting myself, or at least giving a different perspective on something I said. When we talk about jobs, we tend to talk about them as if they're like the Flatirons. They're just here, and we can hike up them, and maybe more of them will come up, or maybe not. But jobs are actually created in a social system, and the content of those jobs is often a matter of public policy. So I'll give you a very specific example. I hear a lot of talk about we need good manufacturing jobs. Leaving aside the fact that I'm old enough to remember Bruce Springsteen's The River album, but how good those jobs are. Those jobs were good, right? I mean, they paid well, they had benefits and things like that, but they were good because society made them good. Manufacturing jobs in 1900 or 1920 weren't particularly good. Workers would organize, and the owners would send the Pinkertons to shoot at them and things like that. There were bad jobs that were good, made good really during and after the New Deal, by union representation, by favorable laws. So when you say, will AI create good jobs or bad jobs? Will it make jobs better or worse? That's sort of what we do with it, right? If we use it to put cameras and monitors everywhere, and we use heavy-handed algorithmic management, well, no, it's going to make the workplaces worse. If we use it to empower people to think for themselves, to adjust creatively, then it'll make those jobs better. My guess is some companies will do one and some will do the other. And then we'll just have to see which would survive in the marketplace.
I think hopefully for many of our students, it's reassuring to hear that we're not getting rid of junior associates anytime soon, and that these are tools that can help make the job more exciting and interesting. It reminds me of the Mark Twain quote of the reports of my death were greatly exaggerated. Hopefully the reports of lawyers' deaths were greatly exaggerated. I want to think about the rules of professional conduct. And there's a lot of trainings right now, and judges and lawyers giving all kinds of presentations about making sure that our use of AI is going to be fully compliant with our professional obligations. The ones that come up most frequently: competence, confidentiality, supervision, unauthorized practice of law, bias. What are you doing and what are you thinking about to ensure that we're using these tools in a way that is fully compliant? And do you think that we need more guidance from the professional organizations, or is it we have good rules that just need to be applied in new ways?
Well, I think we have to talk about it. That's first and foremost. And I think when people are fearful, they're not willing to talk about it and engage with it. I'm a startup. I don't have a lot of resources. So absolutely, I look to institutions in states like Colorado who are leading the way in the discussions. And they are difficult. Like, we're at the forefront of something. There's a lot of tension. There are compelling stories of why it's scary, and there are equally compelling stories of why it really might democratize a lot of things. But we have to talk about it. We have to explore it. I think if we try and ignore it, we could get run over by it. And I think if you embrace it as exciting, but yes, scary, I think we have better outcomes than turning a blind eye to it. And absolutely, I think it's important to have diversification in those discussions, right? Not just lawyers, engineers, people in our communities, experts in different subject matters. I think it's important that we come together and put our minds towards thinking about how we're going to deploy it, and how we're going to apply it, and be flexible to iterate, right? We might get some things wrong, we might have to correct, but without guidance and just going into it unfettered, I think there could be dangerous aspects. And I will just say, so we do mediations in small claims and evictions, and I see lots of complaints that parties have written with AI. And it's interesting, but it's not, at this point, it's not like destroying anything or causing any problems. It is something that we're learning from, right? And that's all we can do at this point, and continue to iterate and learn. And I think we'll get better as we see more of those, of how we discern, but also how we interpret those in the process.
On that point, I hope when you're in the congressman's office and you're getting those really long things, I hope you're feeding them right back into AI and say, summarize in 6 bullet points. If you're not, that's crazy. I do think it's really important that organizations like the bar associations, et cetera, issue guidance and do it quickly, because you could save some law student like me from writing an article that turns out to be crazy. But I also think, I mean, really, no. I think it's important that people in organizations also talk about it and make sure that we are having those conversations all day, every day with everybody in the organization. I attend a whole bunch of conferences of managing partners, right? Where managing partners of law firms of all sizes just kind of sit in a room, and there's this one guy, and he is the chair of a very big firm, and he will take all of the oxygen out of any room and sit there for 20 minutes in every meeting and tell you why AI is crazy. And everybody else in the room is texting like, oh my God, can you make Gary shut up? Because by the way, everybody in Gary's firm is using AI, just not safely, right? Like, and I think about Gary all the time. His name isn't actually Gary, but I think about that guy all the time, because I think it's so important that you continue to have that conversation and in every organization, because it will encourage the ethical behavior that we want. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think like us working with clients, I said earlier, we're hiring, so if anyone's interested, please come find me. We want lawyers. literally half of our company is going to be lawyers. So we want to be sitting with our customers and making sure that they're using AI, when to use it, why to use it, how to use it in a way that is ethically responsible. I think one of the reasons I'm here is because our company started to focus on university partnerships where we said, okay, people are going to be graduating law school. They're going to be going to these law firms. The bar is going to change with what they're expected to do. And that there's a gap between law school and really understanding this technology that has really taken off in the last couple of years. So we're trying to understand how do we support faculty in helping teach about AI, not take away from what their students are already learning, but how will they step into a law firm and understand how to use AI, and then students equipping them with tools on, again, how, when, and why to use it. I'm not a lawyer, but I think the core competencies still remain. They're just expanded, right? So when you think about competence, it now includes technological literacy. I think when you think about due diligence, it includes AI validation. And I think when you think about confidentiality, those are three. Did I get them right? Okay, I just got a JD. When you think about confidentiality, it's like, where is the data flowing? And like, it's your responsibility to know now that like your client data is in a safe place and it's not being sent to the World Wide Web.
I think one of the concerns about over-reliance on AI is that we fear that students or new attorneys will lose the chance to build those critical core competencies of legal analysis, of being a really good writer, of learning how to do research and kind of follow down trails. And I think there were similar concerns when Lexis and Westlaw came out and we stopped using the books of like, well, we know how to follow those things. And you think about with like using Google Maps, like have we completely lost our sense of direction? And I can't find anything unless I have connectivity. And so how do we kind of find that balance of using tools that are going to make us better, faster, more efficient, and more accurate, but not losing some of those, underlying skills? And what can we as educators be doing from your perspective to make sure you're getting kind of the best of all of those worlds?
It is something that we think about all the time. We really feel an obligation to our young lawyers to make sure that they are trained. And you're right, it is changing. And I don't think anybody has the best answer to that yet. Dylan, we are trying and we will figure it out. But that is one of the things that is going to take humans to sit down. It's the practice of law, right? It is a profession that you learn by doing in great part. And so it is going to take senior lawyers sitting with and continuing to mentor and train young lawyers in all of the writing. And I think reminding people that that part's never going to go away is really important, because some of the easy things where you kind of learned by reading 700 documents in a dark room somewhere, looking for a single kind of provision, that training is going to go away. But I don't think the mentoring training kind of thing will go.
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I think, while maybe not knowing our nautical directions because we don't use Google, like that is sad. I mean, I still remember all my friends' landlines from when I was growing up. I still know those numbers and I don't know my husband's cell phone number. And like, that is sort of sad, but also what the space in my brain that has been relieved, like going towards other creative endeavors, might be actually a good thing. So yes, I miss maps and and I think that there's tension in that, right? Like there's duality of what you're going to lose in that, but where we get to explore because we're not doing maybe activities and aggregating data that could be rote could be very beneficial to where we go. But I think it's a hard question because I don't know, personally, I just find a lot of value in the fact that I did hard work and I looked through the books and there was something rewarding in that. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some sort of hard practice or augmentation of the work that we see in a new age lawyer or legal practice. I just don't know what it is, but I do think there's importance in training and rigor and critical thinking. I don't know how we met with how technology is going, but I hope that there's pieces of it that still exist in that way.
Russell, I'm curious how you feel about the ethical obligations either of employers or of government or some other institution to help employees meet the moment and gain skills. And I was touched by Dave's story of one parent getting that support from an employer to be able to transition, and another parent where the skills just kind of became obsolete and there wasn't that transition. And so for our final sentiment, thinking about the ethics of where we can, who takes on that responsibility, and is there an ethical responsibility?
Okay, I've actually thought about this a lot. I think there is an ethical responsibility, but I don't think it's going to come from employers for the most part. I think it's going to have to come from society as a whole. And the term you often hear in this stuff is portable benefits. So a good example is training, like training. I remember reading a book. It was a really good book. It was written in the 80s, but it followed the the old Bell system, the manager development from all these guys, and they were literally almost all men, their whole careers, and they were hired in like the 1950s, and they had 18 months of training before they started working. They were getting paid as managers. Nobody's doing that anymore. And that's been a trend that's been going on at least since the 80s. And I think it's going to be accelerated by AI and certainly by other digital technologies, because what you're seeing is organizations going to more, I don't know what to call them, less formal types of employment. So gig, contract workers, part-time workers, things like that, lots more downsizing, where downsizing is just used as a strategic tool. And so when you don't keep the workers around, you have less financial incentive to train them. So I think it's going to be a vital need that we're going to have to do as a society. I don't think we're going to be able to count on corporations. And I'm not even predicting, that's a trend that's been going on for decades.
All right, I'd love to take some questions from the audience. We'll start with a student. If we have a student question.
So there are so many things that AI is offering with vast potential, and I think we've touched on that. What are the things that sort of alarm you about the changes that are overtaking the industry? And then professionally, how do you sort of guard against them? And I'm not an alarmist about it at all, but I do wonder, everything's so great, and what's sort of lurking in the shadows when you're not at work?
Robots. My husband, who just desperately wants one. I've said no. That was
I think when it starts to get better, our philosophy is like humans in the loop. We're you got to look at everything. We're in the loop, and the purpose is when it gets better, we become more efficient and we can do tasks without humans in the loop. I mean, personally, that just scares me. And like hallucinations, or I will be totally honest. I draft stipulations. We have a proprietary tool that helps our mediators, but we read them, and oftentimes our parties don't. That's never going to change. So then I'm like, okay, how can we use technology to help them read them? I'm going to read your stipulation to you now. I think what's most scary is us not considering how we're going to deploy it and not being involved with it. Because I think it is so quick to develop. And if we don't lean into having consideration and conversation and being a part of how it's deployed and how it's used, then I think that is the biggest and most scary detriment. By far, I think we have to be involved.
I think the thing that actually scares me on a professional level, besides robots, is the people who say, here's something that was drafted by AI. And they don't take any professional responsibility for the thing that they just handed to me. And I find that very offensive. And I find that it's so easy for people to do. And I worry that will become more the thing that happens. And we keep trying to knock that away. But I see it not only in the legal profession, but I see it everywhere. And really worry about us for that.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar, which is AI is not the source of truth, and it's gonna get to the point where it might be the source of truth, and then I start to question reality. If we want to get really meta on it, but
I'm not a student.
It's okay, we don't need a student now.
Okay. When I think back to my career as a plaintiff's lawyer, never had more than 2 or 3 partners. And I always felt like every time I went into the courtroom, the insurance defense litigator on the other side always knew a lot more about this topic than I did because they were specialized in it. I get a feeling that maybe things are being weighted more toward the defense firms now. When I hear, was it Lucy that said, we have our own in-house AI? I think, damn, that sounds really intimidating, you know, when you're a small firm plaintiff's lawyer. Are things being shifted? Does it shift the advantages more toward large firms? And does it make it riskier for a young lawyer to go into a small plaintiff's firm?
I don't know the law, you know, so I'll let these guys, you know, answer that. They'll know it better than I could. I will say this though, if you actually look at AI in the workplace, there's, you know, all the research is new, so take it for what it's worth, but there's some evidence that it tends to equalize performance more. So, so suppose I'm really good at writing. I hope I am, I don't know, but suppose I was. Somebody who's not quite as good as I am, and maybe not even all that good at all, could get an AI to write or to even to proofread or something like that. So I think what's likely to happen is a lot of these knowledge asymmetries are going to go down in the future. Another way to say it, which I think we've already seen just from the internet, is that the dollar value of knowledge is dropping. And I know that's a generalization, but think of like a book in the Middle Ages, right? They were written by hand, often by a monk, and only rich people could own them. Now, when I was young, people would buy paperbacks. Now you just kind of download them for free if you go to those websites, you know, and stuff like that. And so I suspect that that asymmetry you're seeing is going to be mitigated somewhat.
yeah, I will sell our platform to you as well after this. We are actually seeing a huge demand for small firms, like less than 10 lawyers, because they don't have the wallets, and they essentially are thinking about it less in terms of replacing, but they can't afford to hire paralegals. So they can buy our product for 30 grand. That's significantly cheaper than them hiring a human. And so that actually increases their edge against firms that might have 10 associates working on the same deal.
I think that's right. I agree that there will be probably, maybe not today, maybe not next year. It will over time actually kind of even the playing field a little bit. The problem is security, right? So like the internet security, the cybersecurity, all of those things, they're so expensive for law firms that I think that's going to be the driving force in the industry. But that's a little off topic.
So I'm sure everybody here has heard of many cases in which fraudulent briefs were filed. There was a case where this summer where the Chicago Housing Authority was represented by a firm, one of the partners there, authored a brief using language models. 4 other lawyers, including the founder of the firm, reviewed it. Turned out to be fake. That case it ended up costing Chicago Housing Authority $24 million. That person was fired, went to, anyway, it was like a career-changing event. But humans are just not good at recognizing the kinds of errors that get produced by these systems. So like, what does due diligence or review look like? And related to that, we talked mostly about cases where like the lawyers are writing briefs, but we have also heard, at least from like August on, examples where judges, including federal judges with lifetime appointments, are using language models to author decisions. And like, what is the scrutiny that we need in that kind of setting, and how do we actually have a reliable system where like the integrity of the law can persist?
I think the first answer is we've got to scare the heck out of the lawyers, right? Which is what people are starting to do. There's a judge in Nevada who just issued a ruling kind of punishing some lawyers who had used AI and said, you can either go teach your story for like 300 hours or something, or I will take away your licenses, you pick. I think people have to understand what's at stake, and I think the consequences have to be really severe, and that's like the easy first step that is starting to happen. We had this exact same question in my firm, and a couple of weeks ago we sat down and said, well, how are we going to do it? And we thought about the model of the surgeons who had were leaving a sponge inside a body, right? And so and the pilots, right, come up with a checklist. So that's one idea that we're starting to implement is anytime you use AI, check these things and just make people do it. I don't know that that's the right solution, but it's one.
You said something earlier too. It's like we should be talking about it. Like, hey, I'm giving you something. I used AI. Like, let's have extra eyes on it just to make sure that we feel comfortable that it's legitimate.
Yeah, because I think if everybody doesn't know that AI was in the process, they won't know to look, right? So that's number one. And maybe checklists. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there will be considerations that are developed because of all this that consider that, right? Like maybe if you want to use the AI lawyer or whatever it is, and that means something different, and what that looks like or what that costs you or the system that utilizes that might be vastly different than a lawyer. And I have no idea. And it is also alarming that cases like this could happen, and because a human didn't do it. So the first thing I can't trust this because I didn't write it unless I go through and really, check every citation and understand how it all connects. But I absolutely think these are just failures that we have to learn from, and we have to do that because I think on the opposite side of the spectrum is what this allows for, right? The democratization of medicine or legal services or other, there's a tension, and we have to balance that out and consider well, do we want to throw out AI because a few lawyers totally misused it? Probably not, but we do need to learn from that, and we do need to understand how we can be better in our process.
I want to be respectful of time, so please feel free to come up and continue the conversation. And thank you to everyone for joining us tonight, and thank you so much to our panelists. Staff and Danielson for helping to make such a fun event happen.